and how India has overcome all these factors and become an economic superpower today. And then we are going to talk about some of the greatest economists who had been there, who reshaped India. India as a country does not need introduction. That's the greatest part of our country. We also try to understand the economy from the manufacturing standpoint. Good morning and welcome to the first session of the Indian Economic Development. That's the part B of first PUC Economics. And these sessions are going to be very interesting. Why? Because we are not just going to learn economics, but we are also going to learn a little bit of history. We are going to understand that why India struggled and how India came up through the struggle in terms of the economic mode altogether. So let's try to understand in this chapter what are the different factors, different features that India was and how India has overcome all these factors and become an economic superpower today. So just moving forward, the first thing that we are going to see today, the topics are the introduction to the Indian economic independence. So we are going to see not just the freedom struggle, but also the economic struggle that India has gone through as a country. Second, we are going to talk about the low level of economic development under the colonial rule, which means to say that the low level of economic development, when I use that word, that means the underprivileged, the underprivileged kind of economic development that was during the British time period. And then we are going to talk about some of the greatest economists who had been there, who reshaped India to become the superpower of economy. So moving forward, the introduction for Indian economic development. India as a country does not need introduction. That's the greatest part of our country, because we have been a country as old as this universe. We have been a country which has led many wars, many revolutions, many struggles, and we have proved the world that India is a country which has got lot of diversity. We have got unity in diversity. So we are not just an example, but we are the benchmark for many nations in this world. But then India's struggle, as in for the freedom, was about 300 years old story. India's economic struggle is also important for us to understand, because India as a country really made a very big comeback. And what you see today, what you see as an emerging market, our country, India, is a long story for us to understand. So let us try to just go a little bit back in history and try to understand from where did the roots of economy start for our country. Now, the primary objective of this entire textbook is to make you understand, is to just get you familiarized with the basic features of Indian economy, the development, what it is today and after independence. Definitely every single Indian citizen will remember the year 1947. Not to forget it and cannot be forgotten. 1947, India got its physical independence. I repeat the word, physical independence. We were free from the clutches of British, but we were not free in terms of economic independence. So this year is very important. But then the years after this, 48, 49, 50, after 1950, India saw its original economic independence. But then this laid the foundation. This was the time when India started understanding, when India started recognizing that yes, we need to make a foot forward. We need to go ahead and we need to prove ourselves globally that we are also a superpower. So, however, it was equally important for us to know something about the economic past. It's always the past that leads to the future. So for our country, our glorious country, which has got hundreds and thousands of years of past, it is something really superb for each one of you to know about it and to get involved with it. Because it is not just about the country, it is not just about the patriotic feeling that I'm talking about, but it is about your future, it is about the growth of our country, and it is how India has now emerged as the next growing economy of the world. So we will also start looking into the state of India's economy. The first factor that we are going to see in the pre-independence form, exactly at the time of independence altogether. And then we are going to look into what are the factors that shaped India's future in terms of the post-independence era altogether. So all the factors itself, the ways of looking at it itself is going to be quite interesting. A lot of statistics, a lot of data, a lot of understanding that needs to go here, and this is definitely going to be a very, very interesting journey for each one of us to understand how the economic independence has happened. So moving forward, this is what we are going to see today. India's role, that is the low level of economic independence during the British rule. India has been an independent country even before the advent of British. Let us understand that India was not in the clutches of British right from the day of birth, right from the day of origin. India has been a free country. India has been ruled by many rulers. India has seen several dynasties. India has seen several kingdoms. India has seen several kings. But what happened because of the British advent coming into India? Those 300 years of their ruling in India changed the entire dynamics of economy. So the rule of British is very, very important in the Indian history because they were the people who actually made India come down in terms of economy. Though the Britishers gave a lot of things for the Indians to learn, but they were the people who actually squeezed the economy down, due to which we lost a lot of wealth. So it is very, very important for us to understand and know the rule of British period, the rule at which the Britishers were trying to really squeeze us down, pull us down, really made our economy come down. Had that thing did not happen in the history, India would have become a global super economic power 300 years before itself. But unfortunately, because of that rule, we were pulled down in terms of the economic growth. Now, if you look here, though agriculture was the main source of income, was the main source of economic development and livelihood, yet people in the country always felt that they were not able to make a real good income out of the agriculture. The reason was quite obvious, that we were not being on the liberalized mode, Britishers were controlling us, and there were a lot of factors that led to the squeeze of the economy. Though there were other factors also that we need to keep in mind, that is the manufacturing activities. Apart from agriculture, we also spend some time. We also try to understand the economy from the manufacturing standpoint. So it's quite interesting to understand at this juncture that it was not agriculture alone that shaped India during the year 1940s to 1947. There were also some sort of manufacturing activity, some sort of economic activity that was going on. Now, India was particularly well known for its handicrafts, for its field activities, for its, in terms of cotton, silk, textiles and other factors. But what was India's core strength? India's core strength was actually agriculture. We are a country who are blessed with most fertile land, lot of rivers, lot of environmental blessings we had. But unfortunately, agriculture could not be channelized properly because the Britishers were trying to hold on by taxes, and they wanted to squeeze every single revenue out of the farmer into their pockets. Because of which what happened is that the Indian economic independence was completely curbed. We were just trying to struggle to come out of the clutches of the British. We were trying to find a day, we were trying to try a month or a particular year where we just wanted to come out of the Britishers' hand and proclaim ourselves as a free India altogether. So our mentality, our thought process, our ideology was primarily only in terms of gaining independence. We were not really focusing on the economic growth. We were people who were not trying to understand the different sectors of economy. It was not our mistake, but we were not guided properly. We didn't have the knowledge. We didn't have the exposure. So what happened in the long run is that India was continuously struggling with its people, with poverty and so many factors that they did not have time to come out and think about the economic growth. So the Indians were the primary people who started promoting agriculture as the core source of livelihood. Apart from textiles, apart from pottery, apart from handicraft, all these things were an allied activity, but agriculture was running in the mainstream of the economy. So everybody practiced agriculture in some form or the other. That was the only known source. That was the easiest thing for them to understand, and that's how the economy started coming up, the economy started booming up altogether. So everybody involved in the activity of production, the basic thing in economics, the production happened because they were able to grow something, rice, wheat, sugar, whatever that we can think about, all of them came from the agricultural activity altogether. Now, the products were enjoyed by worldwide market based on the reputation of fine quality and material that was used, because every single Indian product is a unique mark of craftsmanship. Every single product that was made, whether it was a handicraft, whether it was a textile, whether it was a painting, or you name any kind of quality material that was made out of India, definitely had a benchmark on par. Everywhere, the Indian product, when it entered the foreign market, it was highly appreciated. People felt that there could not be any other country in the world that can be compared to India, because India is the right mix of culture, a right mix of diversity, right mix of ethics and values, and it had the best creativity, talent altogether. So India as a country and its products were definitely appreciated worldwide by all the countries. It was because of Britishers, they had squeezed all our products, they had taken all the products under their control, and they started exporting those products back in Europe and other markets altogether. So what happened here is that though the talent was appreciated, though the efforts were appreciated, but the efforts were never paid back. The people who struggled to create that pottery, people who toiled day in and day out on the fields, under that harsh sun, under the harsh climate, were not paid, because the Britishers had taken the revenue. So what happened in Indian scenario is that for a very, very long time, we were not getting paid for our effort. The revenue factor was not shown to the Indians altogether. So that is why when you go through this scenario, you will enjoy that almost every single product that was manufactured in India was not for India but for the world altogether. Somewhere down the line, Make in India was already there with us. We already made in India and we were exporting it for the global. Unfortunately, at that point of time, at that juncture, we did not know about exports. Our channels were completely controlled by the British, and that was the reason why there was a low level of economic development. Every single product had a tax, had a regulatory, had a protocol which the Britishers commanded, and they took the lion's share in terms of revenue. So the farmers, the peasants, the poor people who were working in the small scale industry, who were working in this unorganized sector, were not able to get a single part of the revenue. That was one of the primary reasons where India had a very low consumption ratio, India had a very low economic downturn power altogether, and they were not able to grow up altogether. Now, if you look here, the economic policies that were pursued by the British, that is the colonial government altogether, were concerned more with the protection and promotion of economic interests of their home country. So the Britishers' ideology was more towards their self-growth, not towards India. Whatever that is made in India, I will make the best use of the product, sell those products worldwide, make money, and grow the British Empire. I was not interested in the development of India. I was only using India as a market of exports and imports. That was my intention altogether. So the British were more of a protectionist. They were more selfish in nature. They wanted only their country to develop, and they did not want India to develop. That was one of the biggest problems that you can ever think about. Though they were ruling us, though they wanted that there should be some sort of development happening, but they really did not allow India to go further as the global developed nation. The way how UK developed, the way how England developed as a country, not even 1/10 of that development happened in India because the Britishers were completely stopping India from going further. So that was one of the primary reasons why you would see that the economic downturn happened in India. Second factor, the policies were brought about a fundamental change to the Indian economy. Now, to understand any economy of a country, the main thing that you need to do is that open up. Because until and unless you open up, you understand the exposure, you understand the global scenario, you understand the fundamental micro and macroeconomic indicators, the economy of the country cannot grow. For India, the biggest problem was that the exposure was completely blacked out. The exposure was completely stopped by the British Empire. The Britishers wanted India to be just kept as a pearl inside a shell. They closed it. They did not allow India to get exposed to the world. That was because their fundamental thought process was to become a selfish empire through which they could make money and they could keep India as a hen that was laying golden eggs. So altogether, India was completely under the control of British, and they were not allowing India to open up to the economic policy, to open up to the growth and allow the Indians to start thinking. So that was one of the very big negative drawback which I would definitely like to talk about in terms of the British Empire. The third thing, transforming the country into a net supplier of raw materials. They made India only a supplier. They never made India a manufacturing hub. They never made India an export hub. They never promoted India as a person who could also see revenue. They just wanted Indians to keep on supplying the raw materials to the British Empire, to the other parts of European countries, so that the other countries can get benefited from the top-notch quality that India was manufacturing. So India was only a market from where the supplies were taken and exported to other countries. India could never become a receiver of income. That was the biggest drawback that you need to see. So the consumer of finished industrial products was Britain. All the finished products, all the best products, all the best quality oriented products were given to the British. They were not given to the Indians. Indians did not have the right to market it. Indians did not have the right to export it. British took over the products. British made themselves the consumer of the products. So whatever goods that were made in India were exported back to British, and they started consuming the final products. So this showed the amount of control, the amount of domination the British wanted to do on the Indian Empire. So that was one of the very big challenges. That was one of the biggest drawbacks that India was facing during the time of independence. Similarly, the colonial government never made any sincere attempt. I want you to mark up that word, sincere attempt. Attempts were made, but no sincere attempt to estimate India's national GDP or the per capita income. They never wanted to see India as a rising star, as an emerging country, as a developed nation, because they always felt that India should only be a supplier. India should never grow. India should never get motivated, or India should never become the superstar of economics. They always believed that India should be a country which should be under my thumbs, under the rules of the British, and British should always control it. So they never gave India a clear picture about their growth, about their capabilities, their skills, or their ability. This made India come down very bad. This was one of the negative factors that demotivated the economic growth of India. So it's very, very important for each one of us to understand at this juncture that India had the capability. India was by default a strong country, a strong economic nation. But because of the British, all the economic factors, all the economic rights were taken back. This is why a country had to go down, a country had to fight for 70 long years to come back into the economic world map altogether. So it is not the mistake of India that we were not able to grow, but it was the mistake of the British that had made India suffer for the next 70 years, where we have struggled now and come back again as an economic superpower. Next, some individual attempts were made which were done in order to understand the yielding factor, what was the value of the Indian economy. But then, moment you use the word individual attempts, those attempts could not be recorded or those attempts could not be considered the original ones. The reason being is that we do not know the validity of that data. Though there were people, though there were Indians known for their intellectual knowledge, known for their talent, known for their ability, but their work was not recorded. Their efforts were never rewarded. Their efforts were always downgraded. So what happened is that even those studies that were made by those individual people were never shown by the British with much appreciation. And that was one of the reasons why we never had an official GDP count till the year 1950s altogether. So we do not know really what was the economic superpower till 1950. What was our GNP? What was our GDP? Many questions still lie at the back of our mind without answers. So it is very, very important for each one of us to go back, understand the history, and then start looking into the future of India. Now, moving forward, we had some of the greatest economists in the world who did make an attempt to understand India and to promote India. Now let's look at some of those great people. We had Dadabhai Naoroji, the grand old man of India. We had William Digby. We had Findlay Shiraz. We had V.K.R.K. Rao, R.V. Rao, R.C. Desai. Now there were a lot of people like them who tried to make and develop India a better nation. What was their contribution? Why did they try to understand the economy of India? It's because they were trying to estimate, they were trying to find out what could really make a difference for such a large country. So it was the great economist V.K.R.V. Rao whose estimates of national per capita income was taken during the time of the British, and they were considered to be one of the most important and significant data altogether. So thanks to that great economist who made some value, who made some significance altogether to the Indian economy. But however, as I go back to my statement, most of the studies in the country's growth of aggregate real output was only in the first half of the 20th century, and less than 2% was able to be understood during the second half part altogether. Why? Because if you start understanding here the Indian economy, till 1950, we didn't have the opportunity both in terms of education, that's the theoretical knowledge, as well as the practical knowledge. If you look back, probably the rate of literacy during the time of independence, the way how the exposure that had come, the way how the subjects of economics, the indicators were not explained to people. They were not aware about it. So there was not much of information, there was not much of knowledge, neither they had the platforms through which they can know each other. So that was one of the major drawbacks through which we were not able to make a correct estimate, we were not able to get a correct meaning altogether. So that was the biggest drawback by which we could not understand the 50 years of economies, let's say from 1900 to 1950 altogether. With this, we come to the conclusion of the first session. Thank you for joining me on this wonderful session today. I hope and believe that this session was interesting, informative, and educative. In the next session, we will be seeing about the economic development that India tried to make during the British rule and what are the different factors that started shaping the Indian economy. Until then, stay tuned, stay blessed, and stay enlightened forever. Thank you once again for joining me today.